Imagine a world where everyone is desperate to be seen, where voices scream for recognition, and where silence has become a forgotten art. In this world, attention is currency, and the loudest often believe they are the richest. But Machiavelli understood something few ever grasp. Power doesn't always come from presence. Sometimes it comes from the void, from the deliberate creation of absence. Emptiness, when used with precision, becomes a force of attraction. The less you offer, the more people want to know. The more you hold back, the deeper they look. It is a law as old as the human mind itself, the law of the void. People do not chase abundance, they chase what they cannot have. They do not desire what is overflowing, they desire what is missing. Emptiness is magnetic because it awakens curiosity, and curiosity is the first step to control. Machiavelli once observed that a prince must learn when to show his power and when to conceal it. To reveal everything is to become predictable, and the predictable man cannot rule. The moment your intentions are clear, your mystery dies. The moment your motives are known, your advantage is gone. But if you master the art of emptiness, if you can say less, reveal less, and do less, then people begin to fill the silence you leave behind. They start to interpret your stillness as wisdom. Your restraint becomes depth. Your lack of reaction becomes dominance. Emptiness does not mean weakness. It means control over the most dangerous force in human interaction, perception. The human mind hates the unknown. It will invent meaning rather than accept uncertainty. When you offer nothing, the other person's imagination becomes your tool. They will project their desires, their fears, their admiration into the space you've left open. You become what they want to see, not because you told them, but because they needed to believe it. That is the power of emptiness. Think of how the night sky pulls our attention. We stare into its darkness, and our mind fills it with dreams, stars, gods. The mystery keeps us looking. Now imagine becoming that night sky in human form, a presence wrapped in silence, not absence but vastness. When people cannot grasp you, they cannot control you. When they cannot predict you, they must respect you. Machiavelli knew this law could turn weakness into strength. The politician who speaks less, the leader who holds back emotion, the thinker who refuses to reveal his full mind, all of them gain a kind of power that no force or wealth can buy. The less you show, the more they imagine. The more they imagine, the more they invest in your mystery. In every room, there is someone who dominates by saying nothing, while others compete to be heard. This person observes. Their silence stretches, their stillness becomes pressure, and soon people begin to turn toward them, waiting, wondering, needing. This is not magic. It is psychology, the science of the void. When you understand that emptiness itself can command attention, you no longer have to chase it. You simply create the vacuum, and the world rushes to fill it. The power of emptiness is the power to reverse the flow of desire. Instead of you wanting their approval, they start wanting yours. Instead of you trying to be seen, they start trying to be noticed by you. The dynamic shifts quietly, invisibly, but completely. Those who master this law do not beg for influence, they become the silent axis around which influence turns. They understand that to appear full of themselves is to be easily defined, but to remain an empty vessel of potential. There is a kind of power that doesn't roar, doesn't command, and doesn't need to announce itself. It waits quietly, and yet it governs everything around it. That power is silence, and to Machiavelli, silence was not the absence of words. It was the weapon of the calculating mind, the strategy of those who understand that influence thrives not in noise, but in measured restraint. Most people believe that to win attention, they must constantly speak, constantly prove, constantly perform. They fill every gap with words, every moment with motion, terrified that stillness might make them invisible. But what they don't realize is that noise destroys weight. The more you speak, the less each word means. The more you react, the less your reactions matter. Silence, on the other hand, multiplies value. When you withhold words, each one you eventually offer becomes a treasure. When you delay your response, your judgment appears deliberate, composed, superior. Machiavelli understood the rhythm of power, that authority is not gained by adding more, but by taking away. The wise leader doesn't fill the room with opinions, he lets others reveal theirs. The cunning strategist doesn't rush to answer, he studies the impatience of others. Every silence becomes an observation post. Every pause becomes an opportunity to read what others expose in their discomfort. Silence disarms people. It makes them speak when they shouldn't, explain when they don't need to, and confess when they think they're persuading you. The more they try to fill your silence, the more control you have over the direction of their speech. You're not reacting to their words, they're reacting to your quiet. It's a reversal of power so subtle that few ever detect it until it's too late. When you stop competing for attention, you create tension, and that tension is currency. In that charged space between your silence and their noise, you gain leverage. They want to know what you think, what you feel, what you plan, and because you do not offer it freely, they begin to assign value to it. This is how authority is built without force, not by demanding to be heard, but by making others desperate to listen. In the court of Florence, Machiavelli observed men of power who ruled not by decree, but by the measured use of words. They spoke briefly, and the silence that followed their speech echoed louder than the speech itself. The unspoken became a stage where imagination played. People filled the gaps with respect, with fear, with speculation. A ruler who speaks constantly breeds familiarity. A ruler who speaks rarely breeds legend. Psychologically, silence projects control. To remain quiet when others are emotional suggests strength. To withhold when others overshare suggests depth. The human mind equates restraint with confidence, and confidence is the most persuasive form of dominance. In silence, you appear certain even when you are still deciding. In silence, you seem wise even when you are merely observing. Silence also has a deeper function. It reveals truth. When you speak, you can only hear yourself. But when you fall silent, the world begins to expose itself. People's intentions, loyalties, and weaknesses surface in the absence of your noise. You begin to see who seeks validation, who fears judgment, who depends on your approval. Machiavelli would say that silence is the mirror in which others show their souls. Yet silence is not passive, it is active waiting. It is the sharpening of thought before speech, the crafting of impact before expression. Each pause is a calculation, each withheld word a strike prepared in stillness. The strategist who uses silence wisely moves through chaos untouched, letting the crowd exhaust itself in noise while he remains the unmoving center. And in that stillness, power accumulates. Every unspoken word becomes pressure. Every unmade reaction becomes mystery. People begin to orbit around your calm, drawn not by what you say, but by what you refuse to say. They start to interpret your quiet as knowledge, your patience as foresight, your distance as strength. In the end, silence becomes not the absence of sound, but the presence of control. There exists a paradox in human nature so ancient, so deeply wired, that even the most rational minds cannot escape it. We are drawn not to what we understand, but to what we cannot explain. We chase what hides from us, and we fall in love with what refuses to be captured. Machiavelli saw this weakness clearly, the magnetic pull of the void. When you offer nothing, people begin to offer everything. They project, they fantasize, they invent meanings around your silence. And in that projection, you gain power. The void is not emptiness, it is potential. It is a blank canvas on which others paint their desires. It is the mystery that compels the human mind to fill the gap, to solve the riddle, to reach for what seems just out of grasp. This is why those who withhold are pursued, and those who reveal are forgotten. The moment you become fully known, you become ordinary. But as long as there is a question around you, you remain extraordinary. Machiavelli understood that perception shapes all influence. A leader, a lover, a thinker, each one holds power not by what they possess, but by what others believe they possess. Belief is stronger than truth. And belief thrives in the shadows of uncertainty. When you create the void through silence, distance, or mystery, you give others the freedom to imagine. They imagine greatness. They imagine power. They imagine depth, and the more they imagine, the more invested they become in maintaining that illusion. This is not manipulation, it is mastery of human psychology. People cannot tolerate blank space. They must fill it with narrative. When you say less, they start writing the rest of the story themselves. When you step back, they step forward, seeking to close the distance. Their curiosity becomes your leverage. Their attention becomes your gravity. You are no longer chasing validation, you are silently demanding it. Think of how art works. The most captivating paintings are not those that show everything, but those that conceal something. The shadows, the unfinished lines, the space between figures, that is where the mind wanders. That is where emotion is born. The void makes the image come alive. In the same way, the less you reveal about yourself, your thoughts, your intentions, the more vivid you become in the imagination of others. Machiavelli would say that people are not loyal to truth. They are loyal to the stories they tell themselves. When you give them nothing, they build those stories around you. They create myths to explain your silence, assign motives to your restraint, and see wisdom in your distance. In their attempt to define you, they begin to depend on you. You occupy their thoughts without ever lifting a finger. The void, then, is not a passive emptiness, it is an active magnet. Every word you withhold pulls them closer. Every detail you leave unspoken creates tension. And tension is the purest form of attraction. The mind, once captured by tension, cannot let go. It replays your words, analyzes your pauses, searches your meaning in the smallest gestures. You become the riddle that cannot be solved. The great seducers, rulers, and philosophers all understood this principle. Cleopatra conquered through mystery more than beauty. Leonardo da Vinci's smile still commands attention centuries later, not because of what it reveals, but because of what it hides. Napoleon's silence before his battles unnerved entire courts. The power of the void does not lie in what it contains, but in what it promises. It whispers that there is more beyond the silence, and people will give anything to reach it. In conversation, this law becomes even more powerful. When you listen more than you speak, when you leave pauses that stretch just a little too long, others rush to fill the space. They offer their thoughts, their feelings, their weaknesses. Without pressing, you gain insight. Without effort, you gain control. The void becomes your instrument, subtle, invisible, but irresistible. But there's a deeper layer to this magnetism, one rooted in desire itself. Desire only exists in the space between what we have and what we want. If you remove that space, desire dies. By giving too much, you suffocate curiosity. By revealing everything, you erase longing. The void keeps desire alive because it keeps satisfaction just out of reach. It feeds the imagination, and the imagination feeds devotion. People are drawn to what they can never fully possess. The moment they believe they understand you, their fascination fades. But When you remain slightly beyond their comprehension, you become a living symbol of mystery, of wisdom, of power. Your presence becomes a question that never ends, and questions are far more powerful than answers, because they live on in the mind long after the moment has passed. Machiavelli knew that every strong leader, every strategist, every influencer must learn to build this invisible field around themselves, a kind of aura that keeps others guessing. It's not arrogance, it's architecture. You design your image not by excess, but by restraint. You let others see enough to stay intrigued, but never enough to feel complete. You become the horizon they can approach, but never touch. And in that delicate balance, something extraordinary happens. The more you withdraw, the more they reach. The more you stay still, the more they move toward you. The void transforms into a mirror that reflects their hunger, their curiosity, their ambition. They no longer see you as you are, they see themselves in you. You become a symbol of their own striving, a vessel for their imagination, and in that transformation, you hold the quietest, most unshakable form of power imaginable. Power does not always roar sometimes, it whispers from the shadows. In a world where everyone rushes to be seen, the one who holds back becomes the center of gravity. When you offer them nothing, you create the space for their imagination to do the work for you. They will chase your silence, interpret your stillness, and invest their energy into the mystery you've built. Machiavelli understood that true influence lies not in force, but in control, the control of what remains unseen. So remember this: in strategy, in love, in life, what you withhold defines you more than what you give. The void you create is not emptiness, it is your throne. Dare to master the silence and let the world speak your legend. If you found power in the void, subscribe now and step deeper into the art of invisible dominance.